A man in LA legally defends his family from home invaders and has his CCW revoked? How could this happen? Stay tuned, we're going to break it down. Hey everybody, this is attorney Andy Marcantel and attorney Marc J. We are the partners of the Attorneys for Freedom Law Firm here today to talk about a pretty interesting video. How you doing today, Marc?
I'm good. I love doing these videos. Seems like there's more to the story here. So
yeah, I don't think we have all the information.
No.
Something tells me we don't have all the information, but let's get into it right now.
Okay, let's watch it.
All right. Throws his coffee. The guy had the gun drawn, returns fire.
Chases after them. Looks like they're still firing.
The other guy returns fire.
Still chasing them.
What are your initial thoughts there, Marc?
Well, I mean, at first blush, looks like a great use of a firearm. This guy is clearly not the aggressor. He's trying to go into his home. And then you see what I'll refer to as the bad guys jumping over the fence, masked, guns drawn, pointed at him, imminent threat of death or serious physical injury.
Question, yep.
This is super clear. Homeowner turns around, pulls. Fortunately, he's carrying, right? If he's not carrying, 100% chance he's a victim here, right? 100% chance.
Well, 100% chance that his family members also become a victim too, because
That's
they're probably saying at that point, we're walking in right now.
Yep,
I'm going to
yep.
get some valuables, and we're going to be holding the family at gunpoint.
He may have saved his family's lives
No doubt.
by carrying a firearm. So there you go for all the people who think it's more dangerous for armed,
In an
incompetent.
extremely liberal, gun-grabby jurisdiction. This is right outside of L.A.
That's right. So fortunately, this guy had the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms and to carry it outside his home in a way that he was ready to go. And when the bad guy showed up, he did exactly the right thing. He didn't worry about his coffee, but he got a firearm, pulled it out, and returned fire.
What you just said was so important. Had the right to carry it outside of his home, because this hasn't always been decided law until just recently with the Bruin case, right?
That's right.
Because all the previous case law leading up to Bruin only definitively said that one had the right to carry it under the Second Amendment in their own home, like you can possess it, but we're going to leave the question undecided on whether you can carry. Bruin said, no, you can carry outside of the home,
Right.
too.
This thing should be all over the national news. Peaceful, competent adult, responsible firearms owner defends himself, his home, his family, because he was carrying a loaded firearm outside his home.
That should be the headline.
That should be the headline on this.
Okay. In a perfect world.
But then it gets just a tad more tricky, right? It gets a tad more tricky because he makes the initial defense, right? And it looks like these guys are retreating. Okay, at that point, the threat is ended, right? You got to be really careful about drawing the line between where you have now successfully repelled the imminent threat and the other side of that line, which is, I'm going to get these guys.
That's right. Yeah, we've had many criminal defense cases where it started out as an imminent threat, and then our client pursued, right, and shot somebody in the back or chased them to the edge of the property.
You're not the sheriff.
Right.
You're not the sheriff here. And so while you may have a right to make a citizen's arrest, which is probably what we'd be arguing, right, if this guy gets charged, but it's just not smart to pursue. Now, it looks from the video that's just at the front door. If you just look at that, it looks like these guys leave. They're in full retreat, and he then
he
chases them and is firing rounds at them. So he starts looking like the aggressor at this point.
That's why I'm really happy that we have that second video showing the frontage, because you can see one of the bad guys turn around and discharge a round right back at him.
That's right. So the threat is still present. It's still ongoing. He's defending his home. So even though you are in a state that has a duty to retreat, you're right at your front door here, so arguable that you don't have a duty to retreat because of the castle doctrine. You're in your home. But even if that didn't apply, there's no chance you can retreat in complete safety here. People make too much of the castle doctrine.
Right.
It almost never.
We've talked about this many times.
We've talked about this. And so it almost never applies. And so this is a case, I think, where he initially acts unquestionably on the right side of the law.
While we love the sentiment of the castle doctrine,
yes, we do.
We like the idea that there's a statement in the law that if somebody comes into your own home, you have certain rights to defend it. We love that.
Yeah, just to put a little finer tip on that, it's very difficult to imagine a circumstance where you have an imminent threat of death or serious physical injury and you can retreat in complete
Right.
safety. It's kind of hard to imagine that. So, I've never had a case that turned on that question. Of course, Arizona is not a duty to retreat state, but in any event, that's not the subject of this video. So it looks like he is now pursuing. It looks like he's firing his gun. I don't know what happens after that. We don't have a lot of information here. If he shoots one of these guys in the back who's fleeing, probably it's going to bring some problems because he's in California, right? If the guy's in Texas, you may get a different result. But in California, if he shoots one of these guys and hits them in the back as they're retreating, and maybe even in Texas, to be clear about it, you might be looking at some very serious charges. But I don't think any of that happened here. And that's the end of the incident. We don't know if this guy's going to be charged. It's possible he could be charged. He's in California, right? If he was in a different state like Texas, you probably feel pretty comfortable the guy's going to be looked at more as a hero, someone who defended his home, less like a vigilante, a reckless vigilante, which is probably how he'll be painted in California. But then we get to the issue of the concealed weapons permit.
That's right. So a couple of days later, he then has his CCW revoked by LAPD, from what I understand, or the relevant law enforcement agency decides that we're taking away temporarily, we're suspending your CCW permit. Now, I thought it was really notable, Mark, when we were looking at the news coverage on this stuff. Initially, he obscures his face in the coverage. The reporters say that he specifically requested to remain anonymous because this is an ongoing investigation. So it looks in the beginning like he's particularly interested in remaining anonymous. But then the CCW permit is suspended, and next thing you know, he's all over the place. He gets with the NRA, and they release a video where he talks about how he's very upset that he successfully defended his family from these home invaders, and as a response, they took away his CCW permit. The reason that he gave for their suspension of the permit is because I yelled at them. They told me it was because I was rude to them or yelled at them, and so as kind of a retaliation, they took away my CCW permit. Shortly after he released that statement and that version of events, the authorities released something. I think it was a post on one of their social media saying, we absolutely deny that that is the reason why we revoked it, and we've even given him steps that he can do to restore it. Of course, some people are saying, well, we don't care if that's not the reason it was revoked. Why was it revoked in the first place? What are your thoughts, Mark?
Well, my first thought is, why is this guy making any public statements at all, right? This is the difference between talking to people who are firearms activists, right, who want to get the word out there about how outrageous it is that this guy acted appropriately and now has got his permit suspended. Okay, we don't know exactly what's going on there. But if he talks to a criminal defense lawyer, if he had come in here and talked to us, even though nobody is more pro-freedom than we are, right? That's the name of our firm. We're the attorneys for freedom. We are hardcore pro-freedom on all issues, including the right of competent, responsible adults to keep and bear arms. But because we're criminal defense lawyers, we would have said, look, Mark's number one rule:
shut the heck up.
Yes.
Don't go around talk. We just found out that this guy's been on multiple podcasts.
What are you doing?
He's going out talking about the incident, and even when it looks like a good shoot, if you're out there just talking to the public about it, you might say something in hour 2 of a 3-hour podcast. One statement slips out that gives a DA who is highly motivated to prosecute you, maybe in a jurisdiction where they don't like guns so much. Maybe all of a sudden you're generating evidence that they can use against you.
You might have thought that somebody who's involved with, the NRA, the podcast, the group over there, somebody would have said, it's only been like a month or so since this incident happened. You could still be charged.
There's something called a statute of limitations.
And you're nowhere near it.
Yeah.
And so they got plenty of time to charge you. Maybe you should keep your big mouth shut, even if you're in the right? Because you could say something that could be twisted or contorted or taken differently or get a prosecutor motivated to do something against you here. So I don't know what this guy's doing out there making public statements about that. The concealed weapons permit is the least of this guy's concerns. Again, I'm not saying he's going to be charged here, but why take any
The
chance?
defense attorney in me just cringed with every bit of coverage that I've seen him going out and talking about, giving his version of events and everything that happened. If you feel like you need to address these things publicly, at least do it through a lawyer, so that the statement isn't legally attributable to you.
Right. We'd been happy to speak on this guy's behalf, right? Make a statement that's carefully crafted, maybe even release a statement to the press, as we have done on several occasions before, something that we feel is very safe to release that gets to the point. And also, we don't even know why the permit was suspended, or even if it is suspended. There's some evidence that they're happy to give him back to him. Maybe there's some little technical problem. Maybe he does get it back. I don't know. But you're poking the bear here by getting out there and making these kinds of statements when you're really vulnerable, when there's video of you pursuing other people. Yeah, admittedly, these are bad guys.
This is even if he's completely legally justified in the shoot, and even if the authorities were completely unjustified in taking away his CCW permit, we would still counsel to shut the heck up. Why are you going out and making all these statements which can be twisted, distorted, and construed against you? Clearly, he didn't speak to a criminal defense attorney worth his salt, or else he wouldn't be out there making all these statements.
So I feel like this is installment one of this story, right? We don't know where this thing's going. Maybe he gets charged, and maybe he gets charged unjustly, right? And so we don't have the full information. It's really hard to comment on these cases. They all turn on the facts, right? One of the things I talk about at the gun show is we're fighting about the facts, right? It's not just about the law, it's about the facts. And different people can have different versions of events, and a small part of this is caught on the video. What we saw in the video, the beginning part's outstanding for him in terms of his ability to act lawfully and whether he did act lawfully. I think that's clear at the beginning. There's no question about that. But then afterwards, as he's running and he's pursuing them with the firearm out, and I don't know if he's blowing rounds down range, or, and you could hit somebody, an innocent third party. All kinds of problems can happen. Even just if they say, look, you're discharging rounds at a point where these guys have retreated. Now you've discharged a round in the city limits. That's not a self-defense round.
This is what people don't understand, is that the analysis can change so quickly, especially if you have a prosecutor who's motivated to bring the case. We have literally had prosecutors that, let's just put it in the context of this video. We could have convinced, but don't you agree with me, prosecutor, that he probably saved his family by having his firearm, pulling it out, and discharging the first couple of rounds? Oh, yeah, I agree with you. You've convinced me completely that there might be 3 dead, innocent human beings if he hadn't done that. But I'm still going to prosecute him because I believe at that point he pursued and then used disproportionate force and everything. There are plenty of prosecutors like that in the world. And if that strikes you as heartless or unreasonable or everything, it probably is in many respects, but that's what a lot of these prosecutors' offices' MO are, right? They want to prosecute as many gun cases as they can.
You got to be mindful of where you are, right? You're in LA. You got a district attorney out there that's just bought and paid for by the left. I have some friends who are in that organization over there. They're unhappy with how things are going. These are prosecutors who are unhappy with how things are going in LA. They're refusing to prosecute real criminals, people who commit
actual aggressors,
even if it's aggression against property. That's a real crime. That is not a victimless crime. You break into a store and you steal stuff, and they say, well, it's under a certain amount. I'm sorry. It's a real crime. And
people's livelihood.
That's right. It's a theft. It's a shoplift, and it should be prosecuted. But for political reasons, they're not bringing those. And they hate guns, right? And you got a prosecutor's office over there that just hates the idea that people are free, at least to the extent that competent, responsible adults get to keep and bear arms. And so that's the environment you're in. I'm not saying don't have a firearm if you're in L.A. This guy's glad he had a firearm, right? Who knows what would have happened? So it's good that he had a firearm, but he might have gone a little too far. I think that's yet to be seen. And again, I'm speaking as a defense attorney, right? I'm not speaking as a moral matter. We know who the bad guys are here. In a moral sense, you say, hey, whatever happens to the bad guys, they get what they deserve. And there's a part of me that says, hell yeah, if this guy winds up shooting them and killing them, hey, that's a good lesson why you don't invade other people's homes with firearms. But that's not the way the prosecutor's
That's not
going
the
to see
legal
it.
analysis.
That's not the legal analysis. That's the cheerleader in me who likes the good guy and dislikes the bad guys.
Now, of course, we would love to represent this guy
Absolutely.
if he was charged with a crime, but say that a prosecutor disagreed with his use of the firearm after he leaves the hallway, pursues to the edge of the hallway and discharges a few rounds, and decides to charge him. At this point, just the fact that he was charged with a crime may immediately allow certain insurance-backed self-defense clubs to disclaim this guy from any sort of coverage whatsoever. We would be thrilled at that point, even if they charge him, despite the fact that they charged him and it looked like maybe there might be a little bit of disproportionality or something like that. We're happy to do it.
Yeah, to be clear, if this guy's an AOR member and he gets charged, this is a no-brainer for us.
No-brainer.
We're not
Can't
even,
wait.
Yeah, we're not even thinking about saying, "Oh, sorry, this is not one we would cover."
Of course, we would counsel him to shut the heck up and stop appearing on podcasts and national news outlets. But other than that, yeah, we'd be thrilled to handle this case.
Absolutely, yeah. Do we have other things to say about this at this point?
Yeah, see, that's that's a really important point that you brought out, is that we should withhold judgment on casting aspersions about the law enforcement's decision to suspend his CCW permit.
We don't know.
Yes, I said it. This guy looks to be legally in the right and actually probably factually defended the lives of his family and himself from these two clear-cut, morally depraved bad guys. We should still wait until we have all the facts before casting aspersions.
I think it's a very important point to make that you and I take pride with the fact that we call balls and strikes.
That's right.
Right? And so we don't know what the situation. Maybe this called attention to this guy's permit and they looked at, maybe made a false statement, he used the wrong address, he didn't pay a fee, who knows what
There is
happened.
information we clearly do not have. We are highly skeptical that the reason the law enforcement suspended is because he was rude to them.
Yeah. I mean, that seems pretty outrageous. That's the kind of thing that, the civil attorney in me would say, these guys need to be sued if that's what happened.
That's right, yeah.
But I'm very skeptical that that's
Need
what
more
happened.
information.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to follow this story for you guys. If you think we got something wrong or we didn't answer a question you guys had about this incident, please throw a comment down below. Like and subscribe the video. If you liked it, share it with a friend. Go and check out attorneysforfreedom.com to learn more about our law firm, and attorneysonretainer.us to check out the Attorneys on Retainer program to see what it can do for you. Until next time, my friends, has been attorney Andy Marcantel and attorney Marc J. Victor.
Peace.